Never realized we had tables.
Good morning and welcome to our third Wednesday Parent Resource Chat. Today, I'm with you again today. You know that I'm Bettina Campbell and I am the Special Projects Administrator for Oak Hill Regional Community Development Center, and I'm also a navigator. We have with us today Lottie Miner, who is the Project Director, and Duke Robinson, who is our Metrics Director and assists us with technology. In addition, we want to recognize Jennifer Garrett, our board chair, and our executive director, Dr. Michael O. Miner. I also want to thank the navigators, Clarence Campbell, Mary Finner, and Pat Boga for helping to put this together today. We will be streaming our webinar today on Oak Hill's Regional Community Development and Healthy Kids Mississippi Facebook pages. Please feel free to share on your social media pages. Now, we also have with us our guests. We have 4 guests with us today. And our first guest is Mrs. Valtrice Evans, who is the Program Shelter Manager for the House of Grace in South Haven. Welcome, Mrs. Evans. There you are down there. I'm looking in the wrong place for you. Welcome to our program today. So now let me share a little bit more with you about this amazing young woman. Valtrice currently resides in South Haven, Mississippi. She has a bachelor's in science and business administration with an emphasis on human resource management and a master's degree in organizational leadership. She started working for the House of Grace in October 2020. So she's either had or she has coming up an anniversary date. Valtrice previously worked for Hertz as a functions manager or human resource training manager. Prior to that, she worked for 13 years for the Sara Lee Corporation. She is a member of the Wells of Life Church in Senatobia, Mississippi, where she serves as the administrator of finance. Valtrice states that I am a faithful servant of the I Wear Pearls, where she serves as the chief executive officer. She's also a mother and a grandmother. Again, welcome, Valtrice.
Thank you.
She's going to talk to us today about domestic violence.
Okay. I just want to make sure you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I am so glad to have this opportunity. I do want to say, in the absence of our executive director, Sarita Drake, who unfortunately is working on a huge project. So I do want to pay homage to her and let you guys know that she wanted to be here, but I am going to do stead and stand in for her, an awesome, great leader. And so we do want to recognize her as the executive director of the House of Grace. So any questions? You want to get started? Miss Bettina?
Yes, I'm here. What is domestic violence? Let's talk about, so what is domestic violence?
Well, domestic violence is a pattern of behaviors that is used by one person to control or gain power of another person, and usually in an intimate relationship. So it's also called intimate power as well.
Okay, yes, I've heard that. So are there any different types of domestic violence?
Yes, ma'am. There's physical and sexual violence, there's threats and intimidation, there's also emotional abuse, and there's emotional deprivation, which, separating people from other people, So there's not just one domestic violence. A lot of people think it's just physical, but a threat is considered domestic violence.
So just a threat. Okay.
To be domestic violence.
Yes. So who can be a victim of domestic violence?
Well, anybody can be a victim of domestic violence. The thing about domestic violence, it does not discriminate. It happens regardless of your ability, regardless of your gender, regardless of your socioeconomic status, your race, your community, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation. Anybody can be a victim of domestic violence.
So we understand a lot of people think that just because they're not being beaten every day, they're not in a domestic violence situation. But I hear you say it's also mental and emotional. So just a threat could be considered, and anybody, no matter what socioeconomic status they're in or what race, or we all can potentially be victims of domestic violence.
Yes, ma'am, exactly.
So do abusers show any potential warnings?
One of the things that most abusive partners try to establish in a relationship, they try to gain power and control. And they do that through different methods. Of course, different people use different things, but some of it's like telling you that you're not anything, or you're never going to accomplish anything, always talking down to you, or preventing or discouraging you from spending time with friends and with families and with your peers, or, and that's to keep you separated so they can keep you in that mindset where nobody will, interact with you. So they won't know what you're going through. They're discourage you, from making decisions on your own, like trying to attend school or going to work. They'll keep you, out of those places too, so that you cannot gain access to additional skills and things like that. They control the finances, where everything is, I got the money, I have the money, and you don't get to make a decision about the finances, and even, controlling you by making you do acts of sexual acts that you're uncomfortable with. Those kinds of things are usually points or trigger points for someone that is a potential domestic violence perpetrator.
So what I hear you saying is that it really has nothing to do with I love you, that's why I'm abusing you, but it's all about control.
Yes, ma'am, power and control, and love shouldn't hurt. We hear that a lot in our arena and within our organizations. Love shouldn't hurt, so there shouldn't be any of those kinds of mental, emotional, physical aspects.
So I'm sure that we all know someone who we feel is in a domestic violence situation, and we can't understand why they keep going back. Can you give us a little insight into that?
Well, a lot of women go back or people in general, survivors in general go back because of lack of finances, lack of education. They've been held back, and they go back because, and the number one is because of the children. I'm going to go back because of the threats. They're going to take my kids away from me. They're going to do this, going to do this. They're going to continue to attack me. You know, they go back because of fear, you know, so those are some of the reasons why they go back. Generally, a survivor leaves 7 to 10 times, attempt to leave 7 to 10 times before they actually leave, because there are so many barriers and factors that are holding them.
Wow. So we understand it's not just because they're weak or they're stupid, but there are a number of factors, what we like to call social determinants of health.
Yes.
That can lead a person to stay in or go back to this situation. So can abusers change?
I think anyone can change. Many abusers, if they would watch the patterns of abuse and attend batterer intervention classes, that they can change. But a part of that comes with therapy. It comes with health. It comes with mental health. It comes with understanding and education of why you're battered.
Okay. So people would have to want to change in order for change to happen. It does not just happen because we want to pray them into changing.
No, ma'am. You have to. There are steps that you have to want to change, but you also have to take those necessary steps. You have to take accountability. You have to be honest. You have to say what role and what part you played in this.
Okay. Well, let me tell. We've been talking about domestic violence, and most of the time when we talk about it, we are talking about women. But tell me, can men be victims of domestic violence also?
Yes. 1 in 4 men have experienced forms of physical violence or intimate partner violence. 1 in 25 men have been injured by an intimate partner. So yes, ma'am, it is. And like I said in the beginning, it doesn't discriminate, so gender does not separate you from domestic violence.
I can remember as a very young girl growing up, and there was this couple that lived around the corner from us. And every Friday or Saturday, we would hear the ambulance go around the corner. One week it would be her, the next week it would be him. So understanding that men, and they're not necessarily weak, they've just been trained to be a victim. And so we want to make sure that they understand that it's not just women. What can be done to stop domestic violence?
Education within the communities and to remove the stigma in certain communities about domestic violence. One of the things that can be done is to break the cycle of it. Make the abusers aware, that the perpetrators aware and the abusers aware that there are consequences to their actions. Make the survivors aware of the different types of laws that are in place for them, so and again, the biggest part is getting inside of the communities, even those underserved communities, letting them know, hey, this is what's available, this is what's happening. It's not a fear factor. We want to be able to let you know what your options are. So to me, the biggest thing is communication, and education to stop domestic violence.
Now you mentioned the word that you said cycle of violence. What can you explain a little bit to the listening audience? What do you mean by cycle of violence?
Well, the cycle of kind of abuse, a cycle can be anything from it's usually like the tension that starts. You got the beginning of, you can usually recognize when something's about to happen because there's a tension or stress building that gets people looking and feeling a certain way. And then the next thing is the incident, like, oh, I can almost tell that it's about to take a turn. And then the incident, it actually happens. And then what the abuser does, they do this cycle where the tension builds up, the incidents happen, and then the reconciliation. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, and then there's this whole calm after that. So it's a 4-point thing, a 4-point cycle. But when the calm comes, it usually doesn't last for long because the trigger starts all over again. So the breaking the cycle is being able to determine what factor triggered it in the beginning. And sometimes that could be something that's in your childhood. That could be trauma, from, that hasn't been dealt with.
So tell me, we've had been in this pandemic, endemic of COVID for a while now, and it has affected us all in different ways. But one of the ways that it's affected us is economically. Does that have any effect on domestic violence?
I think the economy definitely has an effect. The physical aspects of violence often result in significant medical costs and time off. You know, when you're already in a pandemic and you're already don't have the funds that you used to have, when anything happens, having to go to the doctor, having to have additional funds spent out for economic abuse can include, you know, preventing access to other financial resources. You know, it can cause an unauthorized debts, you know. So yeah, it does have an effect. Overall, when the abuser feels overwhelmed by the pressures of not being able to provide for their family, not being able to be the sole provider, those things take mental stress on them, and they take that out on their victims. And yes, so unemployment, anything like that, anything that affects the economy affects how an abuser sees things.
So let me ask you another question in terms of the economy being able to affect, and you were talking about the cycle. Is there a way that the abusee can begin to recognize those triggers and be able to mitigate some of those triggers in order to eliminate some of the violence?
When you said the abusee?
Yeah, is the person that's being abused,
the victim?
Is there any way that they can begin to recognize some of the triggers that their partner some of the things that may trigger their partner to become violent?
There's a thing that we call a legality test, which is an assessment where they can kind of watch for signs, watch for emotional things that are going to happen. But for the most part, you know, we ask the question, why do men batter? You know, because it's not the victim's, you know, responsibility to know or recognize when, you know, because they're never at fault. So they don't have to be in a situation where they're going to think, well, you know, what's going to cause that it's on the abuser. The abuser is the one that has those factors, those innate things in them that, you know, causes them to abuse. So
I'm glad you brought that out. And that was the reason I asked that question, because oftentimes we hear women say, well, if I would just do this, or if I don't do this way, or, you know, they own the responsibility for the battering.
Yeah.
And I want them to understand today that they are not responsible for battering, and that has nothing to do with what they've done. It's all about what's going on in that person's head at that time.
Yes.
And so they can't really control it.
It doesn't matter if the macaroni's sticking or if the milk spilled, it doesn't matter, because those are things that are going to happen, you know. And in normal situations, you respond to those as, oh, clean up the milk. Oh, it was on too high. With an abuser, it becomes more dramatic. You know, you waste the milk and it becomes a major issue. So, and it keeps that person in fear. You know, it keeps the victim in fear.
Okay, so what about a restraining order? What do they do?
Now, a restraining order is, it's really different from like a protection order. Not really. When you say restraining order, we look in this aspect, we look to what we call a protection order or order of protection. And there are two. There's a temporary order of protection, then there's a final order of protection. The first thing that we want the victim to do, and we try to go from victim to survivor. So you'll hear me use those terms because we don't ever want to remain a victim. So a temporary order is an immediate emergency protection from the abuser. And they're granted only if you can prove to the judge through your testimony or an affidavit that you want to prevent harm to you or to your family. And they will usually issue that. Temporary order generally lasts for a court hearing until you can get to the major court hearing. But a final order of protection is issued after that hearing, which you and the abuser both have a chance to tell your sides of the story. So as a court advocate, which is also a part of our job, you know, we go into court and you get to, and I wish this was something that would change. You get the abuser there and you get the victim there, and they both get to tell their story and to say why you need that. So the first thing is a temporary order, protection order, and the second thing is to get a final protection order, which lasts up to a year. So that's kind of different from a restraining order. A restraining order, you can kind of go in, and if I understand, it restrains you from coming in so many feet and that and the other, but we deal with protection orders because we want to make sure that you have something legal in writing and you've gone to court and says, you know, and it says for 30 days, you know, you temporarily cannot come near this person, cannot come near this child, cannot do any of those things. So, and then you go back and you get a final protection order.
I heard you say you wish it would change. Why?
What's that? Which part of it?
Yeah.
Where because sometimes the victims are so intimidated just by being in the presence of the abuser, you know, and you've got the abuser here, you've got the advocate here, and you've got the client here. I mean, you've got the victim here. So it can be extremely intimidating. So
what I'm hearing you say is that maybe we need to try to advocate to have the process changed to offer more protection for victims and their families.
Yes. And in the aspect of when you're trying to get a restraining order, I mean, a temporary protection order.
Well, as a friend of someone who may be in a domestic violence situation, what can we do to help them while they're in that situation?
A lot of times we sit back and we see those situations and we see friends and we see family members. And the biggest part is getting them to ask for help or reach out for help, which doesn't happen often, but we do recommend them calling the friend, calling the National Domestic Violence Line. And that number that's the national line. So you can call from anywhere, you know, so it's the 1-800-799-7233 SAFE number. Also get them in touch with a shelter, with a local shelter, so that you could help them in that way. If you can get them connected with the local shelter, we can get them help from there. It's most time it's convincing them to reach out to a shelter or to a hotline, because once they reach out to a hotline, you can do that for them, but the next step has to be theirs because the conversation has to be had with the victim.
You know, sometimes as family members, as friends, we get very frustrated, sometimes even angry with our loved ones because we can see the situation, but we feel like they ought to be able to see the situation too, and they ought to want to get out of that situation. So in that case, do you encourage patience? Do you encourage pushing? What do you encourage?
You support, and you see it from your side, but they see it from their side. They're thinking, you know, I've got my kids, you know, I don't have a car of my own, you know, are my family members, my friends, and everybody, are they going to stop and get the kids to school? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? They're looking at whether or not they're going to have help, you know, so it's hard not to get frustrated because you see the abuse, but you got to remember they're in that situation and they're still there based on a number of reasons. You know, well, do they know that, you know, I don't pay any bills here, and that, you know, financially, what will I do? You know, do they realize that I'm 55 and I got to start all over? You know, I've got to go into a shelter. I've got to take my kids into a shelter. I've got to change the way I do things. You know, I've got to have a curfew at night. I can't have a phone with me. So there are so many other aspects to it. And as friends, we sit back and we see that, but it's the I guess you would say we would have to be patient, but we also have to remember that we're not in their shoes.
We're not in their shoes. And as when I was doing direct client service, I'm a social worker by trade. When I was, I should say profession. So when I was doing social work and working with domestic violence people, one of the things I was doing was HIV prevention. And in a situation like that, you have to be really careful. And the first thing I would tell them is, you know, I'm not going to tell you to leave your husband, or I'm not going to tell you to leave your wife or your partner because you can't come home with me. And so I think as oftentimes as family and friends, we have to realize just what are we willing to do if we convince this person to leave home? Just what are we willing to do, and what can we do legally to be able to support them? And so thank you for sharing those many different reasons why people they're not in love with the situation that they're in, but they feel like at that time that's the best that they can do.
Yes.
So then are there resources? I heard you say that if you get them to us, we can help them. So can you tell a little bit about the resources that are available for victims?
Yes, if you can get them to a shelter, there are resources available. We have, we'll be able to be an advocate for you to help you get to a protection order, to help you get any type of legal advice, any type of divorces or stuff. Those are avenues that we'll work on. In particular, we have resources for immigrants. We have resources for Hispanics. We have resources that we can direct you to whatever you're looking for. But most importantly, we offer a safe place. And once you're in a safe place, and we say the safe place for the House of Grace is somewhere between 30 to 45 days. You know, at that time, we want you to be able to get the mental health that you need, you know, because you're going to get people who are on medication, and they may have started taking the medication because of the abuse, you know, or it could have been a childhood incident that caused the medication. So we want to be able to get your meds straight. We want to be able to get you healthy. We want to be able for you to get the all of the things that you need. So some of the resources is court advocacy, legal resources, counseling. We have an in-house counselor at no cost, you know, and you get to see that counselor 3 times a week. So those are the kind of the resources. And then we connect you to other resources. You know, there's MIFA, there's MUTE, you know, Mississippi United to End Homelessness. You know, we want to work on housing with you. So we connect with all other organizations to help you get to your final destination.
Okay, that's wonderful to know. But let me ask you another question. Are there resources to help someone who is not quite ready to leave home, but help them learn how maybe to make the situation just a little bit safer where they are until they are ready to leave?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, we do that through our non-residential counsel. We recommend that you get a safety plan in place, because if you know that you're not ready to leave, then we'll help you get a plan in place to when you are ready to leave. So that's another resource that we offer. Sometimes people just want to get away, you know, and get to safety for a weekend, you know, just say, I can't really function in this environment. You know I need to leave, but, you know, I can't do it right now because of this and any other. And sometimes it's just, we've had them here to come for a weekend shelter, just so we can say, hey, you know, this is safe, you know, you don't have to fight this weekend, you know, so things like that.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. I'm glad to know that there are services out there because I know, like as you said, it's a cycle, and to break that cycle takes time, and it takes knowing that you've got the support to do it. So knowing that there is some place that I can go and if I go and I experience that freedom, that safety for a weekend, it may eventually encourage me over a course of weekends or even weeks to be able to walk away for good.
So let me clarify that. Let me clarify that, because once a domestic dispute happens, you have to be a current domestic violence. So if it occur on a Friday and you call us on a Friday night and you say, hey, I can't go back there. I can't do that. This is what happened. I call the police, then we're going to take you for that weekend.
Okay.
So it's kind of a situation where there's a current domestic violence dispute and you say, hey, I don't know if I can leave. I don't know how. I just know I got to have somewhere to stay for the next couple of days.
So thank you for clearing that up. So how many times can I do that?
Not often, because the idea is not to continually go to the abuser, come away, have a violent situation, come away, go back and go back. It has happened, where they have left one shelter and then come to another shelter.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm just so glad again to hear about the resources that are available right here in Mississippi. And I myself just found out about the House of Grace and Grace House, and I was really very excited to have you on today because I know you all have a special event that's coming up tomorrow. You want to talk a little bit about that?
We do. I just want to tell you a little bit about the House of Grace. The House of Grace has been serving survivors of domestic violence for over 24 years. Each year, it sees an increase in the number of survivors and their children who actually either shelter or receive services, or they are survivors who are in need of material items, resources, and counseling. In 2021, the House of Grace sheltered 112 women and their children. We served 201 non-resident women and children. We answered 942 crisis calls, and we referred 72 victims to pardoning agencies. Without, and that's a little bit about, what we do. We have this major event that's called the Purple Purse Project, which is tomorrow. And what we do is that we do this really big auction. We auction off different baskets and items and stuff. And it's one of our biggest events. And we do that so that we can get donations and get funding to help, fund the House of Grace and to continue to be able to help 112 women, give them shelter, to continue to be able to support a crisis line, because we are 365, 24 hours a day. So you've got somebody that's answering phones every day, every single day. So we 942 crisis calls. So we want to be able to kind of continue to do that. And the things like the Purple Purse and the golf tournament and those kinds of things really help to fund the House of Grace.
So the Purple Purse is tomorrow's event. When is the golf event?
The golf event, it is actually on October the 22nd.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So if we're wondering how we can help, we can get in contact with the House of Grace and make a donation. Tell us how we contact the House of Grace.
You can definitely contact the House of Grace at www.houseofgracedv.org. You can even contact it through the executive director, Sharita Drake, and that's going to be via her email, which is executive director at houseofgracedv.org. So any one of those windows, you can visit our Facebook page at House of Grace. And so any one of those avenues, you can reach us. And actually on the Facebook page and on the website, there's a section that says donate here. So we definitely want you to be able to see that, donate here. We certainly appreciate all the support that the community and surrounding areas in the state of Mississippi. We fall under the Mississippi Coalition of Domestic Violence. So we service 7 counties, and also that extends outside of our counties sometimes, depending on the situation. So definitely go to the website and donate.
Okay.
We take clothing donation for the women in the shelter. We also take, any type of toiletries. We take any type of food. We take canned goods, because we also have a pantry. that, people come to and get stuff. But the women who are actually in the shelter, sometimes when you're fleeing domestic violence, all you have is what's on your body. So we want to make sure there are pajamas here. We want to make sure that there are, things here that they can use, So other than a monetary donation, which is very important, there are other ways to donate as well, as far as giving types of donations for the women who are actually at the shelter.
So those of us who are listening and we are connected to different organizations or churches, we can get busy and try to get a donation or get a drive going specifically for House of Grace to be able to help these women and their children.
Yes.
Wonderful. And thank you so much. Now, those emails that you gave us, would you please drop them in the chat for us so that people that are listening will be able to have that information if they need it or be able to share. We have navigators that work across the state of Mississippi, and sometimes I'm sure that they run into these situations. So that's just another nugget that they can have in their toolkit to be able to pass along to our consumers. So again, thank you so much. And we are going to open up for questions. So if there are any questions right now for Ms. Valtrice Evans, we would you can either put them in the chat, or if there's someone online on Facebook or whatever, please share those with us. Or if you want to open your mic and ask a few questions, we can do that right now. No question? I know that you did an awesome job of explaining it, but maybe it's just going to take people a few minutes to be able to get themselves together to ask the questions that they want to ask. So we will ask again after our next presenters.
Oh,
so can you stick around with us for a while?
Yes, ma'am, I sure can.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. Our next guests are no strangers to us, but we're happy to welcome them to this third Wednesday parent chat group. And they are Clarence Campbell, who is the education director, education coordinator, and also a navigator. And then we have the Medicaid application administrators, Pat Bogan and Mary Finner, who are going to talk to us today about the plan year 2003 insurance open enrollments. Welcome, and thank you so very much for being able to help us today. What happened? Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. I'm Clarence Campbell, and I'm here primarily to talk about the Affordable Care Act ACA open enrollment program period, which starts on November 1st. But before I get to that, the Medicare open enrollment period began Sunday, October 15th. And we know Medicare is a program for seniors, those who are either on Social Security or those who have reached the age of 65, primarily those that have reached the age 65. So during this open enrollment program for Medicare, probably a lot of you, the older people, may have been receiving notices in the mail about different Medicare Advantage plans that they can sign up for. There's been a lot of commercials on television about Medicare Advantage plans. And so if you currently have a Medicare Advantage plan, or if you're new to Medicare and you're looking at obtaining one, just some things that I'd like to caution you about, and that is before you sign up for one, make sure that you get all the information about that particular plan that you're considering. Make sure that you get a summary of benefits. The summary of benefits will explain to you what your deductible is, the amount that you have to pay before coverage begins. You also need to know what percentage coinsurance you'll be required to pay. Will it be 30%, 20%, 40%, whatever? And then you also need to know what your maximum out-of-pocket could be. Some of these plans that I've looked at have a maximum out of pocket up in the tens of thousands of dollars, which means that's the amount that you're responsible for paying. So just make sure to do your due diligence before you sign the line for one of these Medicare Advantage plans. Okay, now I'd like to go into the Affordable Care Act coverage. Our open enrollment period for this is from November 1st in just about 12 days and runs through January 15th of next year. And so this is going to be a little bit of a commercial for the Affordable Care Act. And what I'm doing is I'm just showing you a few select pages from the healthcare.gov website. Healthcare.gov is where you would go to enroll online if you chose to do so yourself. And we also have a cadre of 65 navigators through Get Covered Mississippi who are there to help you as well. Okay, so first of all, we said open enrollment runs November 1st through January 15th of 2023. Okay, the marketplace is for people who don't have coverage, but it's not free insurance. It's not meant to replace any existing programs such as Medicare, Medicaid, or CHIP, Children's Health Insurance Program. The idea behind the marketplace coverage is if you don't have insurance available through your job, or if it's considered unaffordable, which means that it costs more than a certain percentage of your wages, then you can obtain coverage through the Affordable Care Act, and you might be eligible to receive what are called premium tax credits that reduce your monthly premium. Okay, so one of the things that ACA does, the Marketplace Insurance does, is when you're filling out an application, we might actually find that you don't qualify for ACA coverage, but you qualify for Medicaid. And so we have two Medicaid sisters, Mary Fenner and Pat Boga. They're standing by. And so could I ask either of you ladies, what happens if, as we're going through the application process for trying to determine someone's eligible for coverage through the marketplace, they're not eligible?
Okay, one of the things, if they're not eligible for the marketplace, they may qualify for Medicaid and CHIP. And of course, this coverage will it will help people that are either a low income, pregnant women, families, pregnant women, the elderly, and people, also people with disabilities. And of course, in some states, they offer expanded Medicaid, but unfortunately, Mississippi doesn't. But if you do not qualify for the marketplace, you may qualify for Medicaid and the CHIP program.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now going back to marketplace coverage, what you're going to pay for marketplace coverage depends on your income. And typically the lower your income, that is, as long as you meet the minimum income threshold, the lower your monthly premium will be. And then also usually the lower your income, the more likely you are to qualify for what are called the premium tax credits. These credits that can be applied that can reduce your monthly premium from maybe $200 or $300 a month down to $15 a month, or maybe even $0. You can apply for coverage in several different ways. As already mentioned, you can go to the website, healthcare.gov. There's a phone number that we can get you that you can call and apply that way. Or you can apply with help from someone in your community. And here in our Mississippi community, again, we have navigators throughout the state from the northern tip, South Haven area, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. And then we have a number that work over in the Delta area, and then we have quite a few that work in what's called the Golden Triangle. Okay, am I on the right? All right, so what do marketplace health insurance plans cover? All plans in the marketplace must cover these 10 essential health benefits: ambulatory care, emergency services, hospitalization, maternity, pregnancy, newborn care, mental health and substance use disorders, prescription drugs, rehabilitative and habilitative services and devices, laboratory services, prevention and wellness services. And then with pediatric services, they cover oral and vision care. Oral and vision care is considered essential for children, but not for adults. Adults have the option to purchase dental and vision coverage or separate dental plans if they enroll in a marketplace plan. And a big part of Affordable Care Act coverage too is the preventive health services. A lot of the plans that might become available to somebody, they may have a premium that's too high for someone to pay. So they get a plan that has very low premiums. And so it doesn't pay a lot towards medical services. But what it does is it covers a lot of free preventive health services. These services are free when they're delivered through a doctor or other provider that's within the plan's network. The preventive services are available for all adults, women, and children. So we're going to take a look at what's available for all adults. There's a plethora of benefits here, from what's this, abdominal aortic aneurysm, one-time screening, alcohol misuse screening and counseling, blood pressure, cholesterol, colorectal cancer, depression screening, diabetes type 2 screening, diet counseling, fall prevention, hepatitis B and C screening, HIV screening. There's PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis for HIV prevention medication, and then just about any type of immunization that might be required. Then it goes on to lung cancer screening, obesity, STI prevention and counseling, and so forth. So these are available for all adults. And then for women, women are special, not just because of this, but women are special. Okay, preventive care benefits for women, in addition to what's covered for all adults. Then there's breastfeeding support and counseling. And this can be of particular importance as we've gone through baby formula shortage and crisis. And so we've had a number of different conversations. I think Pat and Mary, you've both spoke about ways for women to obtain either baby formula or what to do in the event of or during the shortage if they were unable to purchase the formula. Okay, there's also birth control service, folic acid supplements, gestational diabetes screening for women, gonorrhea screening, again, hepatitis screening, maternal depression screening for mothers at well baby visits, and on and on. Then as we go into the other covered preventive services for women, there's bone density screening for all women over age 65 or age 64 and younger that have gone through menopause. Breast cancer genetic test counseling. There's breast cancer mammography screenings every 2 years for women 50 or older, or as recommended by a provider for women ages 40 through 49 at higher risk for breast cancer. Breast cancer chemo prevention counseling, cervical cancer screening, and on down here. And one thing that's also added here is domestic and interpersonal violence screening and counseling for all women. And so I'm going to click on this, and if you were to go online and click on this as well, you would see this fits right in with the presentation, the wonderful presentation that Ms. Evans just presented. And on this site here, it gives you signs to watch out for, warning signs of relationship violence. It goes through the basics. There's a National Domestic Violence Hotline number that's listed here that you can call. It helps you define what's relationship violence, different types, physical, sexual, threats of physical or sexual violence, emotional abuse, stalking, healthy relationships. How do I know if my relationship is healthy? Warning signs. How do I know if my relationship might become violent? And again, there's the hotline number to call so that you can talk with somebody here if you're unable to reach the House of Grace Shelter and speak with somebody there, or this in conjunction with it. It's ways that you can obtain help. And then this covers also how relationship violence can affect your health. So again, this is one of the preventive services that's available for women through health insurance plans that you obtain through the marketplace. Okay, then for children, preventive care benefits for children. Again, these are for children that don't have coverage through CHIP or Medicaid, because you can't have both marketplace coverage and CHIP or Medicaid. So again, the alcohol, tobacco, and drug use assessments, autism screenings, behavioral assessments, bilirubin concentration screening for newborns, blood pressure screening, depression screening, developmental screening. I'm not even going to try this next one right now. Fluoride supplements, STD medication prevention, BMI measurements, and again, all the immunizations that they may require. Did I go too far? Okay, now I'm back in the area where I should be. Right. Dental coverage in the marketplace. Again, dental coverage is not considered an essential benefit for adults, but there's a couple different ways that you can obtain dental coverage with the marketplace plan. Okay, first of all, you can't buy dental plan, a marketplace dental plan, unless you're buying a health plan at the same time. Some of the plans that you might be eligible to enroll in, the health plans, will be available with dental coverage. Sometimes you'll, as you're scrolling through, seeing what plans are available, you'll see a particular plan and it will not include dental and vision will also be part of this plan. And then you'll scroll a little bit further, and then for additional maybe 30, 40, 50, $60 a month, then you can have dental and vision coverage. If those don't appeal to you, then you can also purchase a separate dental plan. Okay. Okay. And then the last thing I want to talk about is mental health and substance abuse coverage. Mental health, mental and behavioral health services are considered an essential benefit. Okay, so what would your next step be? Your next step would be, if you think you'd like to find out about applying for coverage through the ACA, then what you might want to do is contact, I'll go back a page. You might want to contact somebody with Get Covered Mississippi. Again, we have 65 navigators that are experienced in helping people obtain coverage or other types of services, Medicaid, or maybe even Medicare. There's several different ways that you can contact us. You can go to, you can send us an email at info@getcoveredms.org. You can go to our website, getcoveredms.org. Then there's also a phone number that you can call, 662-298-3584, or you can text us at 662-689-9712. Okay, Mary, Pat, anything that you would like to add?
No, again, as you stated earlier, we are about 12 days away from the open enrollment, and we just want them to know that we're available. We're ready.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now going to return back to our host, Bettina Campbell. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with all of you.
Thank you all so very much for the wonderful presentation. There is a question that I have that kind of goes with our presentation that we had earlier about domestic violence and finances. If a woman finds herself in a situation of having to leave home and to go into a shelter, is there a way that she can kind of look for her financial purposes? Is there a way that she can qualify for the Affordable Care Act?
Is that for me?
I'll direct that one to Clarence Campbell.
Okay, if a woman is in a domestic violence situation, is there a way that she can obtain coverage through the Affordable Care Act? Okay, typically, in order to be eligible for the advanced premium tax credits that lowers one's premium, if you're married, you have to file your taxes as married filing joint. And if you're in a domestic violence situation, you're married, there's a good chance that you don't want anything to do with this abusive spouse, husband. And so the way around this is you can fill out the application, you can legally fill out the application as single if you're a victim of domestic violence. And then you can obtain coverage that way.
That was my one question. Are there any questions that anyone else has that you might want to ask? If so, put them in your chat, or if you are online, put them in your chat there, and Mr. Duke will let us know or you can open up your mic and ask questions. And you can ask questions about the insurance, or you can ask questions about domestic violence.
Ms. Bettina, we have a question for Ms. Evans. It's for, do you guys cover the Memphis area as well, or just strictly South Haven area?
We funded through the Mississippi, our funds are in the Mississippi area. However, we do have clients who are in dire need that we have accepted, and that's usually based on a case-to-case basis. So we have in the past, but it's usually on a short term where we can get you to another agency in Tennessee that can better assist you.
All righty. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Wonderful.
I'm checking the social media now, Ms. Bettina.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Evans, how long did you say that an individual or family can stay at the House of Grace?
Typically, it's a 30 to 45 day emergency shelter. So during that process, we're trying to get you to transitional housing. And that's when it comes in, when we're trying to work with or other organizations like Mute and Devon Housing, which is through Sacred Hearts. We also work with Catholic Charities as people who can kind of help the transitional process. But typically, it's a 30-day domestic violence shelter for someone who is immediately fleeing danger.
Okay, Ms. Evans, I had a question about your location. Do you publicize your physical location of the shelter? Is that something you kind of keep secret so that the woman wouldn't be pursued there?
Yes, we are an undisclosed location.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, when anyone comes to our shelter, they have to be escorted by the South Haven Police Department. So they can't just give them the address and say, hey, you can come here. And we do that so that we can maintain the safety of the client, but also the safety of the staff.
I understand. Thank you very much. That's,
You're welcome.
that's great.
There's a question. It's to, I'm gonna say the navigators. And the question is, what about filing taxes with a married couple and the husband estranged?
Okay, regarding the question about filing taxes with married couple and the husband is estranged. If you speak with the help desk about that, they will tell you that if the husband is estranged or the couple is estranged, then you can consider this to be a matter of spousal abandonment and then file taxes as separate, or not separate, but as single, and then be eligible for the premium tax credits. But just because you decide that you don't want to file taxes jointly, you don't have that option if the husband is physically present within the home.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any other questions? If there are no other questions, I want to say thank you to this wonderful group of panelists that we've had today that have provided us with a lot of information that we can use for ourselves, for our families, for our friends, our church members, or just community members that may need this information. And it's just, as I said, it's just wonderful to know that for women who find themselves in situations where they have to flee, that there are services that are available for them. It's also wonderful to know that because they have to flee that situation where they may be dependent on their husband and their husband's income for insurance for their children, that there are options that are available for them. And so again, we want to say thank you. And we want to encourage you today to share your webinars with your social media network. Feel free to post any questions or comments. Well, we talked about that in the Zoom. But also feel free to go to our website to be able to, which is www.Oak Hill Regional Community. Let me stop that and start all over again. It's www.oakhillregionalcdc.com and www.healthykidsmississippi.org. Those two websites you can go to for resources. If you have questions, you can always call us. And as Mr. Campbell has said, we have a cadre of over 60 plus navigators who are available to assist you with trying to determine whether you're eligible for these insurances. And let me say that if we find that you are not eligible, we don't just cast you to the side. That's when I, as the Special Populations Administrator, get involved and make sure that we connect you to some type of health care. So again, please give us a call. Just some friendly reminders. On Monday, October 24th at 6 p.m., please join us for the Ask Mary and Pat webinar. And then finally, I want you to remember that next third Wednesday Parent Resource Chat is November the 16th. And our guest will be someone from the M.R. Davis Library in South Haven. And they're going to talk to us about the wonderful services that that are available regionally through these libraries in Mississippi. So thank you again. And once again, we want to acknowledge our board chair, Jennifer Garrett, and our executive director, Dr. Michael O'Miner. This has been a production of Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation, belonging, building, and bridging in the Mid-South regions and across the state of Mississippi. For those of you, once we sign off Zoom, sign off Facebook, we'd like the participants who have joined us by Zoom to stay on